What's up, everybody? Freaking pumped to be in here. Give it a second, let people hop on. I know this is a weird time, but I'm excited to talk about a few different topics today with you guys. It's going to be a good one. If you guys haven't heard me teach before, get ready. It's different from any of the other leaders in Overcome Nation. But we're going to have some fun. I'm a little bit like Rick. I like to yell sometimes, so just get ready. Just get ready. Let me make sure that this has been approved so people can hop on. We can get going. So my guess is you guys, anybody who watches this recording, fast forward to maybe 3 minutes through, and we will. That's when we're going to get started. I just want to make sure that since I'm not an admin on the page, I want to make sure that this live gets approved by one, so that we can get rocking and rolling. And if you guys hop in, shoot me a comment. I want to make sure I can see that people are in fact in here. Let me see. All right. Give it just another 30 seconds and we're gonna get started. I'm psyched. I'm jacked. I have a very busy day today. That's why I had to move this training back. I know it's normally at 5, but I've got multiple calls, home event, and everything tonight. So if you guys could drop a comment, I just need to make sure that you guys can see this, that this is working. I don't want to start training and find out nobody could even see this. So, okay, cool. All right, it must have just got approved because I can see people hopping in now. Sweet. Okay, well, let's get going now that people are hopping in. Super jacked to be with you guys today. Have some pretty exciting things to share with you. Kim asked me, hey, you want to do the training on Wednesday? I was like, let's go. So I've got a very different style of teaching. You know, I like to yell like Rick does. Anybody on my team, they know I like to get violent sometimes when I teach. So I'm excited to share some of this stuff with you guys today. You know, I captioned this video. I captioned it. What's up, Carissa, Joe, Tommy, Kim, Kyle? What's up, guys? Brittany. I captioned this video, this training. You're so much closer than you think. And I want to talk about a few different things tonight that I love to talk about. Anybody who's seen me speak, I don't know what it is, but my wheelhouse, it seems to be on talking about pain. So we're going to talk a little bit about pain on this call. But anybody who saw me speak in Chicago, I had 5 minutes less than I thought I was originally going to have. And so I didn't get to talk on one of the best points. So I wanted to start this teaching with with part of what I had to leave out in Chicago. And what that was, what's up, Michelle? What's up, Melissa? What that was the power of story. You know, I said in Chicago, if you guys haven't seen it, that video is actually it's posted on my Facebook, but you can go back and watch it to get context for what I'm about to say. But I want to talk about the power of story, because I think so many people, they discount their story. I think so many times we don't think that our story matters. I don't think that I think you see people who've been through some stuff like Rick or like Frank, and it's so easy for us to say, man, I've not lived in my car. I've not, been through divorce. I've not been a single parent. I've not done this. I've not done that. Nobody wants to hear my story. And that's not true. I'm going to tell you guys right now, because while a lot of those stories are powerful and they're inspirational, a lot of them are not relatable for the masses, for people that you might want to bring into your business, it may not be relatable. I remember when I first started in this business, I was living in my car and I was telling people, not when I was living in my car, it was after I was out of my car, I was telling people I moved out to California to pursue mentorship, and I lived in my car for a year, and I swear to God, it would like scare people away. Like people didn't even, they'd see that and they'd be like, this guy's way too intense for me. Like, it's obvious that he can do this. I cannot do this, right? And I would scare people away with the intensity of my story. And so I had to dial it back. And so I encourage you, if you think you haven't been through some craziness in your life and that's hurting you, it's not. But the pain is coming, okay? Because in building a business, you're going to deal with some pain. You're going to deal with some challenge. And so I was talking about, and I want to start off and pick up where I left off in Chicago, is the power of story. Because I know we're all going through it right now. I know we're all going through different pains in our life. It might be financial. It might be spiritual warfare. It might be in relationships. It might be with kids, with a spouse. It might be at work. It might be with your health, right? There's so many different battles that we're presented with in life. And I think it's really easy for people to say, oh man, I'm facing all this resistance. That must be a sign from God that this isn't for me. That's not true. If you understand the context of any successful individual, I'm going to tell you right now, is that you don't know you're on the right track until you're in pain, actually. If you're feeling pain, you know you're on the right track. If you're very comfortable, you're probably not on the right track. And so what I've noticed in my life is some of the pain that I've gone through. I'll share with you guys, some of you who don't know. I'm not going to spend a lot of time diving into my story, but I will touch on it so you can have some context for some of the things I'm going to share. And so, for me growing up, I've always been really ambitious. I've always been very hardworking. I learned that from my dad. I learned how to be, a hard worker, how to always care about people and put other people first and do whatever it takes to win. And so I've always been super competitive. But with that being said, I've also, as I was growing up, my dad, he owned a business and my mom worked for my dad. And so I had this very unique duality on working. I saw my dad who was working 80 hours a week, and I saw my mom who was working 50, 60 hours a week. And I saw this duality that I didn't want to do either of those things growing up. I was like, I didn't want to be an employee and I didn't want to own a business because both of those options looked like they sucked to me. I was like, I don't want to do either of those things, right? And so I grew up really confused. I grew up like, dude, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do for a living. All I knew was I felt like I was created to do something significant. I knew that I felt like I was created to do something that mattered, and I was never really money motivated enough to do something that I hated. And so I've been broke most of my life because of that. I went from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing in my life, trying to find what lit me up inside, and it took me a very long time to find it. And as I was growing up, I watched my parents lose everything. The house that I grew up in over 20 years. In 2009, many of you remember the economic collapse. When my parents lost their business, I watched my dad build something for 29 years. I want you guys to put yourself in these shoes. Imagine building your Viseo business for 29 years, pouring everything into it and having it overnight taken from you. Imagine the devastation. And that's what I watched my parents go through. Something that my dad spent his entire life building, overnight gone. And I saw the most pain in a man's eyes of my life watching my dad go through that. And it was hard, but he taught me strength. He taught me perseverance. He taught me how to keep going. My dad is the strongest man I've ever met. He taught me so much. It was so hard to watch that, but it's an honor to be able to experience that. And that was a hard time. There was times we couldn't afford food. It was really, really bad. It was really, really hard. Had family, friends buying us dinner and Thanksgiving dinner and bringing it over. And it was hard to go through. But man, I'm going to tell you guys this. The hard times draw you closer with people that are in your life. The right ones draw closer to you. When you're going through pain bonds you. Anybody who watched Marty and Ruthie speak in Chicago, you know that when you go through pain with a brother, with a sister, not just blood, but in business, in life, when you go through pain, it bonds you to the people that are experiencing it with you. And so if you and your team are going through pain right now, understand that you guys are creating a bond that cannot be broken. And so when I watched that happen, I just realized that I needed to do something different than what everybody else was doing if I wanted to get something different than what everybody else was getting. And so, really stupid decision. I ended up going to college, which is what everybody was doing, right? But I didn't know any other way. I didn't know how to start a business. I was, 19, 18. And so I went to college and I was studying business. And I remember starting in a network marketing company when I was in college, and I built it for about 3 years. Had some moderate success in the business, and it ultimately ended up failing. The business collapsed, went to court, lawsuit, the whole nine, and it was really hard to deal with that. But before that happened, I dropped out of college to pursue that full time. I had all of my friends, everybody around me except my family was criticizing me. Why would you do this? Why would you drop out of college? Why would you give up an education for a pyramid scheme? All this different stuff. And you know what, those challenges, all my friends turning on me like that, what all those challenges taught me is it taught me to persevere. It taught me the value of my dream was worth more than the value of the opinions of people who would leave me because I did something they didn't agree with. And so if you're going through some pain right now, I'm going to say it is going to divide your network. What you're going through will divide your network. You will find very quickly when you do network marketing who is with you and who is against you. Who is with you because they love you and who is with you out of convenience, out of fun. People that spend time with you because girls come around when you show up, or good-looking guys come around when you show up, or because you like to have fun, or you're funny, or you pay, right? When you go out, you pay, right? People like to be around those people, but you find your real friends when you make a decision that nobody else agrees with. It will teach you a lot. And so I dropped out of college and faced all this resistance to build a business that failed, and everybody doubled down 2 years later and criticized me even harder. We told you it wouldn't work. We told you network's a pyramid. We told all this crap, right? And I had to go through this at the same time that my parents lost their house due to a prior bankruptcy. And a girl that I thought I was going to marry at the time, thank God that didn't happen, but a girl I thought I was going to marry at the time, she broke up with me. All of that happened within a 4-month period, and I faced heavy depression in my life. Heavy depression in my life. And the very people who stuck with me through thick and thin were the ones who helped pull me out of it, right? So the pain you're going through right now, you're developing relationships with people who are going to be there when you're on the tightrope in your life. And here's what I've noticed, right? Actually, I'm going to say this in a moment. I want to say one more point, and then we're going to get into the training. After all this happened, my business failed. My girlfriend at the time broke up with me. My parents lost their house. I was facing depression. I knew I needed, get this, I needed fresh soil. I needed to pull myself out of the muck and mire. I needed to pull myself out of all of the pain. I needed to pull myself out of all of the hell. And I needed to put myself in a different environment. I needed to plant the seed in new soil. I had to get in an environment that could cultivate me and grow me. I needed to get away from all the people who were talking trash and put myself in an environment where it was really just me and a couple other people, but where I could isolate myself from all of the negativity and get myself refocused. And it was in that experience of about 7 months living in Arizona with some friends that I was able to go through some introspection. I was able to go through and get to know myself better, read a lot of books. I got off social media. I read a lot of books. I don't want to call it meditating. I wasn't meditating, but I was just in my head, getting to know me. So much of our lives, we try and get to know other people, but do you know you? Do you know what turns you on? Do you know what turns you off? Do you know what fires you up? Do you know what motivates you? Do you know what tears you down? Do you know any of these things about yourself? You got to get to know you. And that was a phase that I went through. And after that, I realized I needed a mentor. I needed somebody who could teach me and show me and train me and take me down the railroad tracks to success. And so this is the part of the story most of you do know, is I ended up getting connected with an individual. I will keep his name private. But I got connected with an individual who was a multimillionaire, international public speaker, spoke in front of over 30 million people in his career. An amazing, just a beautiful family, a great relationship with his family. He's a global influencer, very successful. And I was able to get around this individual. Please, if you guys know who this is, do not put his name in the comments. But just out of respect for him. But I was able to get around this guy. And before I was able to get around him, I had to make a decision. And this is a word for somebody on here. I'm going to tell you this right now. I needed to make a very challenging decision because I didn't know anybody where he lived. I was living in Arizona. He lived 6.5 hours away in California. I didn't know him. I had only had a 30-minute conversation with him where he said, hey man, listen, I think you're the real deal. If you're ever in California, let's get lunch. I'll do anything I can to help you. And I don't know about all you guys, but you only got one life to live. I don't know about you guys. I only got one life to live, and I'm going to live it, and I intend to live it. And pain gives context to pleasure. Without pain, you wouldn't know what pleasure actually was. It would be neither good nor bad, right? The new context for pleasure would be bad, and something even better would be good, right? So you need pain for context. And so I made a decision after this phone call to about 4 weeks later, I moved out to California to get around this guy. I spent a year in my car in total, sleeping in it a number of nights, sleeping on people's couches, showering at LA Fitness, brushing my teeth. I paid rent at LA Fitness, I swear to God. I would spend my days at LA working out, showering, brushing my teeth. And then I would spend the rest of my days when I wasn't at working a job, I would spend it at Starbucks, right? Reading and prospecting, or actually I wasn't prospecting at this time. I wasn't in this business yet, but I was just in any moment I would get around this guy, and it was only once every, maybe month or so I was able to actually get around this guy. But we started to build this relationship. We started to become close. We started to become friends, and now he's one of my closest friends. He sits on the board of directors for my life. He's a close friend of mine, a sounding board for me. And he's the one who introduced me to Rick and the other mentors that you guys now know. But I was willing to go through some of the craziest hell, some of the craziest experiences, and I didn't know what for. I just knew I had a vision for a better life. I knew I had a vision for what life could be one day, and I had no vehicle. But after 6 months of building a relationship with this guy, he told me, dude, you know what? One of my close friends is starting a new company. I know you're burned out from network marketing, but I would encourage you to give this a look. And it was Viseo. And I'd love to tell you guys it's been, fairy dust and cupcakes ever since. My life got harder once I came into Viseo. I've been in the fire for 2 years in this business, growing, developing, battling, experiencing literal hell in my life. But I have a vision. Vision will keep you. It will sustain you. It's like bread when you're hungry. You need a vision. You need something to keep you on track. And we're going to talk about vision in a moment. But first, the title of this teaching was you're closer to the finish line than you think. And this is a word for me as much as it is for anybody watching this. I'll tell you that right now, full transparency, right? Because it's easy to say these things. It is not easy to live these things. But my question for you guys is, if you compare this business to a race, a marathon or a 100-meter sprint, 100-yard sprint, if you look at this business through this context, right, I think a lot of us are too focused on the future. We neglect the present. We're so focused on the future that we're going to be rich. We're going to be successful. We're going to be diamond. We're going to have all this money. We're going to have a big team, that we forget to do the things today that will get us to that destination. And a year later, we're in the same exact place as we were because we're so focused on the future that we're not doing what we need to do right now. I'm going to tell you, you're way closer to the finish line than you think you are. You think that your destination is 10 years out. You think it's 5 years out. You think it's 3 years out. I'm telling you, you can get there way quicker with a shift in your mentality, and I want to share it with you. Because if you look at this business, like I said, through a different context, some of us are looking at this like a marathon. Others are looking at this like a sprint. What I want to say is, how do you run a marathon versus how do you run a sprint? You run a marathon conserving energy along the way, just to the last quarter mile to give it all you got. I'm going to tell you guys, this business is a little bit differently. You're never going to get to that last quarter mile if you're doing a valet jog all the way there. You'll never get there. It will be a slow, painful death, and you'll never get to the end of the finish line if you treat this like a marathon. I hate when people say, it's a marathon. It is not a marathon. It is not. Don't let anyone tell you that. Corporate America is a marathon. Go there if you want to run a marathon. It'll take you 40 years, and you'll die a slow and painful death there too. You can retire, and after you retire, you'll be 68 years old, and you can live for 7 years, and then you'll die based off statistics. You don't want that life. You don't want to live your entire life aiming at retirement just to retire, and in your best years, you're spending them making hospital visits and medical doctor visits and going to physical therapy because you can't live your life. You don't want that. Don't treat Viseo like that. Don't treat it like a marathon. I'm telling you, if you look at this like a 100-meter sprint, how do you run a sprint? You go all out. You go all out. You shred a sprint. At the end of the 100 meters, you've got nothing left. I'm not telling you burn yourself out in this business, but I'm telling you some of us are too focused on the future that we neglect the present. If you only knew how close you would be, you wouldn't be doing a valet jog. Here is what I would recommend. Take the finish line that is 5 years out and move it closer. I committed to being here in a decade because I knew it wouldn't happen overnight. But I found myself in the first year and a half thinking, you know what, I've only been here a year and a half. I've still got 8.5 years to go. It's okay. But you know what happened? I started getting frustrated. I was like, why am I not more successful right now? I'm sick of this. I was sick of it. I was so sick of it. And so I moved up the finish line. I said, I don't want to be successful in 8.5 more years. I want to be successful next year. But that means I need to adjust my daily disciplines. I need to do more every single day. If I'm going to move the finish line up, I need to run harder. I need to run faster. I need to do more now. Otherwise, somebody else is taking my territory. Every single day that I'm jogging towards the finish line, move the finish line up so you can run through it faster, harder, more aggressively. But what does it take to get there? I'm not fired up enough. I need some more V3, right? What does it take to get there? It takes vision. You need vision in your life. What is yours? You see, I noticed that my business was just struggling. It was like I was on a team training every single Monday, and there was just no growth. It was like we'd go weeks, freaking months without a new person being enrolled in the business. And what I realized was that there was no vision for the team to rally around. Right? There was no common mission for the team to rally around and push forward together with. When you're doing home meetings, when you're doing three-way calls, when you're doing one-on-ones, are you leading with a vision or are you leading with Viseo? This was my biggest problem. Man, I could smoke the tires off of a Viseo presentation, but no one was joining my business. And it's because I wasn't moving people emotionally. I was just selling Viseo. It's interesting. I stopped talking nearly as much about Viseo and I started talking about a vision for what we were going to accomplish. I started talking about how I was sick and tired of broken systems and lack of financial education. I was sick of it, and we're going to do something about it. I shared my story. I said, this is what I'm sick and tired of. This is what we're going to do about it. And all of a sudden, people were like, damn, dude, like I'm sick and tired of that too. I don't have a plan to change that. Well, they adopted my plan, and they started joining my business. And people then started getting other people who got other people to join the business, and all of a sudden I hit gold. It didn't happen all of a sudden. I'm going to tell you guys that right now. The result did, but it didn't. You guys know that I hit silver in my first week in Viseo 2 years ago? It took me 2 years to get to gold. I cannot tell you the pain of watching people come in every single week on other people's teams. People come in a week, they hit a rank. In a month, they hit a rank. I see people that hit gold, and it took me 2 years. And what took me 2 years, it takes other people 6 days. You know how shameful that feels? A lot of you weren't here day one. I was. It's not fun. But I'm going to tell you, do you know what the pain has developed me into? Because a lot of you wouldn't listen to me 2 years ago. A lot of you wouldn't want to hear what I had to say 2 years ago. The reason a lot of people, and I don't say this arrogantly, I say this because I was asked to teach on here, so clearly there's something somebody wants to hear. But the reason people care to hear what I have to say now is because there's weight on my words. And you don't carry weight on your words without going through the pain and the pressure, right? When you go to the gym, you can't lift heavier weight without first lifting lighter weight. You have to push your weight, your pain tolerance, in order to increase the weight on the bar. This business is no different. You have to go through the pain threshold and push beyond your capacity, and it stretches you a little further. You push beyond your capacity and it stretches you a little further. Push beyond your capacity and it stretches you a little bit further. And reluctantly, that's what I have done for the last 2 years. My goodness, it's been so hard. But I value what it's turned me into. You know, I said in Chicago at the very end, I said, your story can be your lethal weapon if you let it. It is mine. It can be yours too. What I found that's very interesting is the more pain I go through, the more interesting my story becomes. I think a lot of us run from pain and wonder why we never have any influence. It's because you're not an interesting person. The most successful people I know have the most interesting stories. Oh my gosh. All the most successful people have been through things that I'm like, dude, what? That's insane. Pain is it's what inspires people to take action. And we've all been through pain, and like I said in the beginning, you don't have to have all this pain to bring people into your business, but if you're going through it, which most of you are, you have to understand the context of what you're going through. You have to understand why you are going through it, because if you want to lead the masses, you have to have a powerful skill set, and you have to know what it feels like to go through pain. And so I didn't know that 2 years ago. I do now because I went through it. I didn't know that I needed to lead with a great vision 2 years ago. I do now because I learned what it was like building without a vision. I learned what it's like doing what everybody else in Viseo is doing, which is just selling the company. And guess what happens when you just sell the company? People come in for the company. The reason people come in is the same reason they will go out. If they're coming in just for the company, they will leave for another company that has a better comp plan or it's easier to get people into. The reason people come in is the same reason they go out. I came in for the education. Guess what you can't find anywhere else? The education that we provide. That's a big reason why I've not gone anywhere. There's a million reasons. The relationships, I'm not going to get into that right now. It's not that I'm thinking about leaving, obviously, but you get what I'm saying, is the reason you come in is the reason you'll leave. There is no better education anywhere else. That's why my team brings people in on the education and why most people on my team don't quit. You have to understand what you're leading with. It's a slower build, but I came here to build an asset that would pay me for the rest of my life. Why are you here? So, what does vision get you? When you lead with vision, what does it get you? Eventually, it will get you to a place of momentum. Momentum's a beautiful thing. I'm just curious if you guys want to put in the comments, what is momentum to you? What would you define momentum as? I'm just curious. There's no right or wrong definition, but when you lead with vision, vision will create momentum in your business. It will rally people. It will unite people together towards a common goal, a common vision, right? You guys, anybody ever seen the movie 300? Show me some likes if you've seen the movie 300, right? An amazing movie. It's really interesting. 300 men with a strategy absolutely were crushing the Persian army, the biggest army in the world at that time, by a long shot. They were 300 men with a strategy, right? The reason the 300 were so powerful is because they were moving in unison. They were moving as one. I want you guys to imagine punching somebody, right, without your pinky clenched. Imagine trying to punch somebody without your pinky actually clenched as well. It's not going to go very well. It's not going to be an effective battle. It's not going to be an effective fight. You're going to lose because probably on the first punch, you're going to break your pinky followed by the rest of your hand, right? That's how a lot of people build their business. Vision is lacking. Vision is the glue that holds together a strong fist that can be devastating in battle. If you have a strong fist, you can be very devastating with it. Your hand moves together as one, in unison, right? You bring all your knuckles together and it can create a devastating hit. Momentum is a result of creating a devastating hit where your entire team is moving together in rhythm with each other. It's something that I did a teaching on with my team probably actually like 3 weeks before I hit gold, interestingly enough. I just realized that right now. But I did a teaching on this where I was like, guys, here's the problem, and this is a word for someone. I would encourage you to write this down, where one week we'd have one or two people who enroll one or two people, and then the next week they're nowhere to be found, but one or two other people enroll someone, and then the next week they're nowhere to be found, and everybody's taking a week off here and there, and so the team is just like this. Every day it's like this. And all of a sudden what happened is we rallied together. Everybody started pushing at the same time. Right? You know how hard it is to hit just gold is a simple rank. A lot of people aren't there yet, so I'll focus on that rather than like a higher rank. But it's not hard to hit gold if you understand the rhythm. It's not an easy rank to hit. That's why they start paying profit sharing there, right? But it's not as hard as you might think if you understand the rhythm. Because gold is the one rank you can't get to on your own effort. You can get to silver on your own effort just by enrolling a few people in 1 week on your weak leg. Listen, nobody's enrolling 6 people on a gold pack in 1 week on their weak leg. It just isn't happening. You can't hit gold almost ever. It's very rare for somebody to hit gold on their own effort. Gold is the first rank where true leadership's required, where your team has to move volume. Your team has to. You have to have leaders on your team pushing. And I didn't understand that for a while. I kept just beating my head against the wall, wondering why I'm not hitting rank. It's because I was the only one pushing every single week. But when we got our whole team behind it, when I hit gold, it was like 15 different people contributed volume that week. It was the biggest week I'd ever had. Interestingly enough, I also had the biggest team buy-in I've ever had. Like 15 or 18 people contributed volume to my business in that week through new enrollments and stuff of that nature. Right? Momentum is what happens when the team rallies together and moves as one, right? If you can get, say you have 6 people on your team, if all 6 of them produce 500 points in one week, say on your weak leg, right? That's silver, right? If you have 12 people produce 500 points, that's gold. You have 24 people produce 250 points. Anybody can do that. That's like the smallest package. 24 people produce 250 points. That's gold. If 1 or 2 people enroll 1 or 2 gold packs, all of a sudden that number shrinks significantly, right? So when everybody moves as one, you can create momentum in your business, but you have to lead with vision. And many times the vision that's going to propel you in this business, it starts off, you want to provide for your family. It starts off, you want to just pay the bills. It starts off, you want to make $300, $500 a month. But the longer you go through the pain, the more stuff it's going to burn out of you, the more stuff it's going to get out of you, and you're going to start to have a bigger vision, not only for yourself, but for your team and for their future and your future. And all of a sudden your vision will become more and more compelling, and it will begin to clarify and crystallize, and people will begin to rally behind it. My team's vision is we're sick and tired of the broken systems in this country and people being taken advantage because of a lack of financial education. I lived that. I came out of that. And we got some people who are rallied behind and around that vision, and that's why things are moving. And things aren't perfect, It's also no surprise. I'm just being transparent here. After I hit gold, I have literally been going through hell in my life and in my business the last few weeks, ever since I hit gold. That's just the way it happens, man. New level, new devil. You take territory, and all of a sudden there's new demons there for you to fight and do battle with. And you take a step back, and it feels like you're going backwards. It feels like you're like, dude, why can't I just continue to move forward? Well, it's because there's a new skill you now have to learn, right? Kim went diamond. She talked about it in Chicago. She went diamond, and all of a sudden was faced with all these new challenges she'd never been faced with before. You have to understand the rhythm of the business. You hit a new rank, expect a new battle that you haven't yet seen. When you can see the landscape of the business, I'm telling you, it makes it so much easier to go through the battles because you know what to expect. Guys, this is stuff no other network marketing company or team is teaching. The real rigors of business, the real landscape of business. When you understand what's in front of you, You can posture up for the battle. But nobody wants to tell you it's going to be hard. Nobody wants to tell you that you're going to get punched in the face. You're going to get your teeth kicked in. You're going to get your rib broke. Nobody wants to tell you all that stuff because they're scared you won't join. I tell people, dude, don't do this. This ain't going to work for you. I'm not telling you have to do the same, but I'm telling you don't be scared to posture up as the one who has the diamond in their hand. I tell my team this all the time. Who's the diamond, you or them? When's the last time somebody walked up to you and gave you an opportunity to partner with the greatest wealth creation vehicle in the world, with the greatest company in the greatest wealth creation in the world, with the greatest product in the greatest company in the greatest wealth creation vehicle in the world, on the greatest team? When's the last time someone did that for you? Who's the prize here? Who has the diamond, them or you? Why are we scared to talk to people? Why are we scared to go after people and say, hey, I've got something big for you to take a look at? Why are we so scared to bring this up to people? We have the diamond. Stop saying, oh man, I'm sorry to bug you, but I think I have something that you might be interested in. No, dude, I've got something big. What are you doing at 7 o'clock tonight? Get to my house. We'll explain more then. This is a big deal. I can't promise you anything, but you need to get there and see what I'm doing. I'll see you tonight. Why are we so scared to get people to take a look at this business? When's the last time someone did something that good for you? And we're scared to bring it to them? We have the diamond. We are the prize. We are the ones that should be posturing and qualifying people. Don't let people qualify you. What are you talking about, man? We have everything. The stars have aligned in this business. Treat it like that. Understand that. Rick told me this. He said, Danny, go get your ass kicked. He said, you know enough. Now it's time to get your ass kicked. He said it just like that. I had to go get my ass kicked. I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, what? What do you mean? I didn't even know what that meant. And I found out what that means. And it sucks. I had a business conversation. I'm going to end in a moment, guys. I hope you guys are getting some value out of this. I had a business conversation through Facebook Messenger with a guy who's way more successful than me. Way more successful than me. Way more. And we were talking about Viseo and stuff. And I'll tell you guys this right now. I got just destroyed in this conversation. This guy knew so much more about business than I did. And I was like, damn, like, dude, I just got trashed. And it affected me, man. I was like, I felt like not good enough. I felt like, dude, do I know what I'm talking about? Do I actually know what I'm talking about? I thought I did, and I started questioning myself. It was the craziest thing. But sometimes you gotta go and find out what your capacity is. You gotta go find out what your skill set is like and actually put it up against a giant in front of you and see where you stand. You know, I'll tell you this, I fared way better than I would have 2 years ago, but I'm still not good enough to go get guys who, make $800,000 a year in income. I'm not good enough yet. That's why I committed to be here in 10 years, because you bet your I will be in a couple more years at most. Probably not even. But you got to commit to the skill set. You got to commit to being here long enough to learn the skills required of a high earner. Rick's been in this business for 15 years almost. You wonder why he's so good at it. That's not the reason, but it is a reason. You have to have time strength. You have to be here long enough to learn the skills. And in the process, your pain is going to develop a story on the inside of you that people will want to hear. I believe that one day people will pay me just to hear my story. I believe the same for every single one of you if you're willing to go through it and hold your feet to the fire long enough until you're fully cooked. I didn't always feel that way, but I do now. You got to be willing to go through the pain if you ever want momentum. If you want momentum, you got to lead with vision. If you want to have a vision, you need to stick around long enough to develop one that's powerful enough to lead a movement, to lead a big organization, right? And if you want to get there faster, move up the finish line. Stop treating it like a marathon. Treat it more like a sprint. So I want to leave it open just for a few minutes here at the end, just for Q&A. If there's anybody that has any questions for me, I know a lot of you probably don't even know who I am. They're like, why is this guy screaming? All this different stuff. I get fired up about this. I'm very passionate about teaching and training and pouring into people. It's my greatest love. But I want to just leave it open. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm going to stick on here for a couple minutes and just to answer anything that you guys might have, anything at all. But if I don't see any questions in a minute or two, I'm going to end this. So, Kim, thanks for the opportunity to hop on here and train. Anything at all? Bueller. Okay. Well, that's that then. No questions. Guys, I appreciate you. Love you. I miss everybody. Man, November can't come soon enough. Those of you who miss Chicago, dude, if you miss Dallas in November, you are playing yourself. I'm going to tell you that right now. You need to be in Dallas. Chicago was a game changer for so many people. Okay, wait, a couple questions came through, but you got to be in Dallas. What was the one thought that kept you going when you were at the lowest point in this business? Great question, Barbara. What kept me going and still keeps me going, because I'm going through more challenges today than I ever did, right? Like, they're new challenges, right? Beat one giant, freaking on to the next, right? The one thought that kept me going when I was at my lowest point in this business was, try not to get emotional. I really love, I like money. I like, the cars and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's cool, but that's never what's driven me. It's always been this vision of me being in a position where I'm trusted with many people, where it's being in a position, being honored and trusted with stewarding many people. And that's a very humbling thought for me, is getting to that point. It makes me very emotional to think that all of the pain that I'm going through and have been through and will go through in my life will be for a reason. That pain will turn into treasure on the inside of other people one day, and is already beginning to do that now. But, it's the vision of, whether it's on stages or just one-on-one in people's living rooms or whatever, just where I'm trusted with the masses. Like, you look at people like, I don't want to be anything like Tony Robbins, but you think about Tony Robbins and how he's trusted with people, with their dreams, with their passions, with their problems, stuff like that. My very close friend, who is a very, very well-known public speaker across the nation and the world. You look at Miles Monroe, you look at Rick. They're trusted with people. And to get to that position is very humbling, and it would be the greatest honor of my life. I believe, if God would put me there, and I believe He will, because it's a promise that I have felt on my life. Another question I saw: What has anyone you've been in business with taught you about their growth? What has anyone you've been in business with taught you about their growth? Carol, I apologize. I don't fully understand that question. I'm going to skip that one. I'm sorry. What was the breaking point that brought you to a place of owning the leadership within to keep going with or without the team? Good question. I had my entire team quit at one point in late 2017. I was living out of my car at the time, and my whole team dropped out. And I wasn't even hitting star every week. And I think I just got to a point where I realized that, what? It sounds bad, but whatever. I was like, if you're a fighter, You know, like you have to be in the gym, you have to be sparring, you have to practice, right? If you're an athlete, you have to practice. Well, in this business, I looked at those people. It was like my practice team. Like these are the people I get to learn on. Okay, I made some mistakes. Probably part of why they're not here anymore, right? And so I looked at them like they were like my practice team. Like, okay, well they were on my team. I learned a lot from that. I'm not going to make those same mistakes again. And I've had people leave my business for those same reasons, not the same reasons, but different reasons. And I've learned from that. And I just understand that like along the way you're scaling up, you know, and I think that's one of the biggest things. I just realized that eventually I'm going to have a huge team that I'm leading. But you got to have somebody to practice on, you know, and that's kind of what happened. It was just a practice team for me, I suppose. But to fully answer your question though, Megan, what was the breaking point that brought you to a place of owning the leadership within to keep going with or without the team? I think it was just that. It was realizing that, in order to get to a big business, you have to learn to steward a small one. And it was just context. You know, I realized the context of the situation I was in at the time, and I realized that in order to get to that place, I had to learn how to handle a few people if I want to handle 20 people. Once I got to 20, I had to learn how to effectively steward 20 in order to get to 80, and then so on and so forth. And I'm still learning. Hopefully that answered your question, Carol. Just in case yes, I mean, what have you learned from teaching others and watching them grow in their growth? Okay. I believe that actually I've learned more from teaching than I have from, you know, learning. You know, that's the best way to learn, I believe, is by teaching, because, you know, it's one thing to sit at a table and learn from somebody else. But to be on the other side of that table and be teaching somebody else, you have to recognize nuances in the conversation that you otherwise would not have. And so that's why I've gotten to a point, you know, I've noticed a lot of people are like impressed or whatever with the way that I speak and the way I articulate, you know, what Rick teaches and stuff. It's because everything Rick teaches, I turn around and I teach someone else. You know, if I find something I'm like, dang, that's good, I take what he taught and I go out and teach it, because that's the best way for me to remember things. And so I've learned this business through teaching others. I've learned the language of business through teaching others. Everything that you guys see now, I've learned because I've taught it. So hopefully this has been good for you guys. I'm going to rock and roll. Thanks for coming on with me. It was fun. Had a good time. And, you know, I'm sure I'll do it again at some point. So everybody in San Diego, I will see you tonight at the event. Love you guys. Have a good night. See ya.